and they think, well, is AI going to get so good it will just obliterate humanity? And I really see the alignment problem instead as an opportunity. I think this symbiosis that's going to happen between humans and AI is going to be really magnificent.
Welcome to The Future of, a podcast by Fresh Consulting, where we discuss and learn about the future of different industries, markets, and technology verticals. Together, we'll chat with leaders and experts in the field and discuss how we can shape the future human experience. I'm your host, Jeff Dance. In this episode of The Future of, we're joined by GenUI co-founder and CEO Jason Thane and Fresh's Technical Innovation Director and Brancher AI co-founder Elisha Terada to discuss the future of AI agents. Guys, I'm so excited to be talking about this topic, given that we're at the beginning of such a big transformation. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me too.
Awesome. I want to give a quick background to Jason and Elisha. Jason, as I mentioned, co-founder and CEO of GenUI, a Seattle leader in creating innovative software products for the last 16 years. GenUI provides an end-to-end product focus through the experience design and software development process, serving clients like Microsoft Research, Nordstrom's, Seattle Children's Hospital, and recently the Allen Institute for AI. We actually met cat skiing about 10 years ago and have been chatting about big topics like this ever since.
Can't believe it was 10 years.
That's crazy. Elisha is, as I mentioned, the Technical Innovation Director at Fresh Consulting, also the co-founder of Brancher AI, which has over 150,000 users. Elisha combines over 14 years of experience in software product development with a deep passion for emerging technologies. He's also helped here at Fresh over 100 businesses create impactful digital products and guide them through, really the strategic adoption of new emerging technologies like generative AI, no-code solutions, and rapid prototyping. So grateful to have you both. Your deep experience in the software space, but also the AI space. And I'd love to hear any other insights you have into your experience just with AI for the audience so they can understand your background. Jason, start with you.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And, as you mentioned, I've been running GenUI for the past 16 years, co-founded with my co-founder, Jason Greer. And we really have been engaged in innovation services. So giving leverage to visionaries and helping them, bring their vision into reality. That's a heavy lift. The devil is in the details, and there are a lot of details. So we exist to get behind that vision with the visionary and bring it to reality, bring it to market. In the early days, it was all about mobile app development and computing in your pockets and having a great, computer connected to the internet with you all the time. But it's transformed, over the years. And in particular, now we're seeing so much innovation activity happen around AI. That's really the subject matter that we're dealing with now. And I think it's a new era of computing when, we're able to use these models and indeed develop agentic workflows to get things done. So I want to mention that we just are on the cusp of releasing with Allen Institute for AI an app called Olmo. This is an on-device language model. It runs on your phone as an open source repository. Any developer can download that and build their own iOS app that is, based on a model or features an on-device agentic architecture. You can ask it questions about anything in the world in airplane mode, and it will give you a reasonable answer. It's a 4 gigabyte file that you download. It's compatible only with like iPhone 15 Pro and above, but it's incredible how much knowledge is compressed into that 4 gigabyte file. It's really made me realize that that's what this stuff is. It's compression of knowledge. And because of that compression of knowledge, we can do things that were never possible before. So that's kind of an example of what we do.
Carrying the world's information in your pocket without the internet, I mean, how game-changing is that?
Yeah, and it's really part of the debate first about open source versus closed source AI models, but also local models running on your own device on the edge or in completely private mode. These things are important, and it's definitely not decided that all the AI is going to happen on a big AI labs cloud server.
Amazing. Elisha, how about you? Tell us more about your journey kind of into this AI sphere.
Yeah, I think pre-generative AI, and I think when we say AI, it's such a big umbrella and that includes so many different terms in one. But pre-generative I got really interested in the world of machine learning. I think it was about 2017, 2016 when every company seems to come up with their own machine learning algorithm, whether banks are swifting through the transactions to find something that doesn't look right, or companies like Expensify releasing product where you just send the image of receipt and they'll figure out how to automatically categorize and bring the numbers. And turns out, I think 10% or 20% was still done by human behind the scenes, but the whole hype has led me to be really interested in the field of AI. And I started to go to conferences that hosted Microsoft, Redmond, I think it was the Pi Data, and got to know a lot of people in the space, got really interested in it. I myself created a model trained on the sticky notes, where I would train to recognize multiple sticky notes, even if they're overlapping each other, and then be able to crop at the right coordinates and then get the information out of it. I think, Jeff, you might remember our Inman Valley project, where how do we tie the physical space information that we capture during the workshop into the digital space automatically simply by taking a photo of sticky notes and turn that into digital data. And I created machine learning model to handle that, and also running on device on iOS, because that's right when iOS started to support the ML capability right on the device, where you can deploy and have your application, mobile application for iOS, work with the models. And then we also had some fun projects like trying to recognize ingredients on the pizza by training on the pizzas we get at our office for lunchtime. And I would annotate individual ingredients and like, hey, please tell what's on the pizza. I think those days are gone now that all these things are like built into the device and you just take a photo and it'll tell you anything you want of the world. So that's such an amazing world. And as we shift through the effort and manual labor that we used to put into training things with our own data to like a general models becoming such a great general purpose use of solving a lot of problems, I continued our journey at Fresh Consulting, creating application like Brancher, which let users create AI-powered application with no coding, because it used to be that I had to download a Python code and then Jupyter Notebook and run those training on the device, and it takes 2 hours to train. Is now just something you can just click and type, hey, this is what I want, and you just deploy and make it work. So I'm amazed at how fast things have moved, and I continue to be invested in learning about the advancements.
Thank you. I look at you guys both as experts and students. And I think we're all students of AI right now. I mean, no matter how deep you are, it's changing so fast that we're all an aspect of learning from each other, given how fast things are going. And it's truly we're at the beginning of another 10-year transformation, like software as a service or cloud or smartphones. And it's the biggest thing since the internet, right?
Absolutely.
And there's a real aspect of intelligence. We know it's artificial, but there's like intelligence that's growing in kind of leaps and bounds. And it's been amazing since the transformer came out, the GPT, and put us in this position to vectorize information, just how quickly things have changed, where we're looking at moving forward human-like performance across like 20 different dimensions, 20, 30 years. And I don't think people realize how fast things have pivoted. There's really a small bang preparing for like a big bang moment in time. And it's real. It's now, and we're at the beginning.
The future is going to be remarkably different from the past. That's the one thing I know. The difference for us looking, 10 years in the future is going to be so much more
Mm.
dramatically different than even somebody could say that 10 years ago. And thinking of all the change that's happened in the past 10 years, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But we're right on the cusp.
We're on the cusp. We're at the beginning. We want to drill in as we think about where we are. We know that agentic AI is this next step. We've started to experience sort of generative AI. Half the world is using it in one way or another. It's sitting on the devices in our pocket now. But what are AI agents, and how are AI agents different than AI bots? We've had AI for a long time. So just to love to dive a little deeper there as we think about current state, and then we'll shift to future state. But Elisha, what's your kind of definition of an AI agent, and how are these different than the things we've had in the past?
Yeah, I think overall the industry is still trying to throw terms at something that never existed before and then try to mean different things. Like when we say agent, what is agent? There's so many articles you can look up online and type AI agent, and then based on which article you read, they completely try to mean different things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's also vague and broad, where a term that maybe when you say AI chatbot, when the ChatGPT came out, it meant one thing, but 5 years from now, the AI chatbot, our understanding or capability would also shift. So the definition of what it can do would also shift as well. So given that chatbot, as I understand best, the way I think we understand in our mind is an interface, a visual interface that you can go into, whether it's your mobile phone or website application, and you type something, hey, how do I cook eggs? And then hit enter, and then you wait for a little bit, and then within 5-10 seconds you get the answer, and then you'll interact with it again and again and again. And when you're done, you quit the application. The rise of agentic AI is a little bit less attending your attention to how the AI is thinking and how AI is asking you to interact. It's the new era where I ask AI agent to figure something out, given a goal. So I say, hey, my goal is to find people, let's say in Seattle, who are software developers and capable, and I'm interested in working with them. So please go find who I should hire. And it's unlike chatbot where I'm asking for something, chatbot asking me the next question, and then I say, well, okay, now go to LinkedIn, scrape the website, and ChatGPT saying, okay, what's the next step? It's without me giving further instruction, it will go and do its own thing, and it might even take 30 minutes for that AI agent or the agentic AI to think and refine, review their own work, and then come back to the different steps and kind of iteratively loop through the task that they come up on their own. So going from I'm giving you a lot of instruction as if I'm working with an intern, like who needs next step, coming back to me like, okay, well, here's the next step. The agents are much more autonomous being where like, hey, here's a goal and here's an incentive. I want you to help me figure it out and come back to me when you finished your work. So that's the difference that I see between chat agent or chat bot who has a UI and agentic AI, which may or may not have an interface that you interact with. And it might, at the initial step, I might talk with it. I might chat to give an instruction, but it's less like a chatbot experience.
Thanks for that explanation. Jason, what else would you add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right on that. Moving from chatbots to agents is really an advancement, and it's a qualitative change. I would define an agent as having agency, which is like the specific empowerment to complete a specific task, where a chatbot might just provide information. And that requires that an agent can generally be trusted, although we have to verify, right? You can't just blindly trust these things. You have to generally trust the agent to be able to do the right thing, even in unanticipated ways. So we don't know exactly how it's going to complete the job, but it's going to. And we expect an agent to continue attempting until it's either successful or is stopped somehow.
I love that.
So yeah, the current phase of innovation in language model powered agents means that like these agents can really understand our need and our intent, and they'll be capable of providing a lot more assistance, and they'll be good at conforming to policy and compliance requirements. That's all part of building the agentic app. Is that you have to verify what they're doing, you have to verify compliance, and you have to verify that they're following policy. One other thing I would add is that it's important to understand that when we're talking to one of these agents, we're actually talking to an orchestration of multiple agents. So it's a group of agents that's charged with the task. And this architecture is highly effective when each agent is given like a little slice of the task. And some of those tasks are to check the output of other agents. Some of those tasks are to classify the input or classify the problem. Some of those tasks are to move the process along. Others are to guarantee compliance, effectiveness, guard against hallucination or abuse, or negative actions. So there's really this new kind of software engineering that's emerging. It's like the level beyond like prompt engineering, which is prompting a chatbot. There's multi-agent orchestration. And there are a lot of parts that can go into that. There's this coordination of layers of agents. There's prompt engineering, there's RAG, retrieval augmented generation. And there's even sort of like fine tuning and training on maybe proprietary data that's not available to the outside world. So there's a lot of work to be done to make these agents really effective, trustworthy, and sort of guarantee their level of quality and effectiveness.
I think what I would love to add on top of that, if anybody is still like confused with like what's exactly agent, I think it's essentially mimicking how we work, right? Like I can ask someone that I trust to go, achieve the goal. Like, hey, please find someone that we should contact for the next deal that we're interested in selling with the software services. You still would want the person to have a supporting mechanism. Like maybe the person has the officer, like the security officer that they can talk to, maybe the CIOs that they can talk to, make sure like we're not violating some HR code of conduct. It's really mimicking how human organization that we come to form, where we don't trust one individual to do the right thing all the time. We want people to proofread your work. We want people to verify that you did the right job. The managers might need to supervise still. And I think if we think in that terms, I think hopefully people could understand that we're trying to achieve something similar, but in this maybe black box thing that you don't quite get to see how it works, but mimicking how organizations form in human society, but in the form of computer.
Absolutely. That's totally right. Yep.
Amazing. I've thought about a couple thoughts came to mind as you guys were talking. One is something adjacent, but I think it may help from an understanding perspective. One is robotics, essentially. As we do a task with robotics, essentially, they're often a simple task. But as soon as you accomplish a simple task well, it begets the next task. And true work automation will involve multiple tasks for a robot to be successful. So, the history of robotics has been like, yeah, we're doing these very programmed things well in some highly automated routines. But now that robots are smarter, we're trying to get into more complex tasks. And so as I think about the parallel of that between AI agents, it's like, we've been doing these tasks, they've been more defined, but now once you solve a simple task, we can add on, an orchestration of different things. So instead of like, hey, narrating 10, 20 steps to accomplish something, we could be like, oh, go get the lawn mowed to a robot. In the same way we could say like, oh, hey, maybe book me a trip to Germany for Christmas if it's under $500, and put together that trip itinerary and make it happen, knowing who I am or something like that. I'm trying to think of some examples, but what other examples kind of come to mind for you guys that could help this come to life for the listeners?
I think that's a good metaphor. Is, the trouble with automating a robot is that you have to predict everything the robot could need to do. That's if you're doing, writing plain code and there's no intelligence baked in. But what's happening in robotics right now with AI is the same as what's happening with this sort of agentic process automation, is that by baking in more intelligence, and my paradigm is that these models are compressed knowledge, and making that available to the task, giving it some agency, you can then handle all the edge cases without having to code for them specifically. It does mean that you have to manage the model just like you might need to manage a person. And that's what these orchestration layers are about. But it really means that we can go a lot farther, to your point, Jeff, of chaining together, the actions and creating a, really holistic process or assembly line. If you try to write all of that in code, it's an infinitely complicated task. And using intelligence and using compressed knowledge and using agent orchestration, we can actually make things work.
Nice. The one example, I mean, we've been experiencing Siri and Alexa for some time now, right? And could we say that they are, while they have large bodies of knowledge, they have been kind of dumb or basic, or kind of like Alexa does a lot of party tricks. And that's cool. That's fun or whatever, but we're not really getting work done, right? We're like retrieving tidbits of information. We're not doing complex tasks. And so as we think about agentic AI, we're thinking of something that's doing much more complex work, correct?
Right. It's just like when we call the bank and we use their phone tree, and you find that, they try to be intelligent and try to handle your request with the phone tree and with a chatbot that you're talking to, but really it can't get anything done. And I think that's the same problem that we've had with Siri and Alexa. And the issue is not that, we can't give them access to our computers, for example. We can do that. The issue is that they haven't been trustworthy. They haven't been really intelligent enough to sort of be given agency. They haven't been agents. They've been chatbots. And I think that's the difference.
Maybe they have been more like a qualifier of should human be involved at this point, but not quite. Like maybe their filter, as in like phone tree, like, okay, you're in the category of customer who needs this help, and okay, maybe at this point you need to talk to human. But that could completely change it, where it can take it all the way to the end of resolving my problem. Because a lot of the problems, it's not really like human needed to do something other than just clicking a button. Okay, yep, your modem is reset and hopefully your internet is back. And that could have been just done by computer deciding to do that for me, right?
Interesting. Elisha, as we think about this next version of agents, what other examples come to your mind, or how do you see this moving towards this term, AGI, the artificial general intelligence? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, we have started to see quite a bit coming out in last maybe just month or two. Just I think this month, OpenAI has released what's called deep research, where compared to something like Perplexity, where you would ask a question to the research about like something in a scientific field, and then it would take maybe a minute or less for Perplexity to look through their own index knowledge and then try to summarize the finding based on the information that they already have. It's nice and snappy and quick, like, great, this is all useful. And we thought that was like already useful and end of the research. But deep research by OpenAI, which is not to be confused with the Google version, it takes like 30 minutes for the deep research to actually do the research. And what it does is it doesn't just like look up internet and then like try to summarize it in a human readable way. It does a research and think and pause like, is this really like answering the question? And then it goes through an iterative loop until it thinks it's done enough work, as if I would task someone to go do the research, but don't just tell me the first 10 links you find on Google results as like, hey, I did the research. No, I want you to read it And then like, this information that I read on this first article is leading me to think about this other thing I should go research about. It goes deeper and deeper. I do that manually when I read articles from like McKinsey and all these big KPMG companies that would where I read 10-page paper and I can summarize it, but it leads me to think, there must be some other thing I should be really paying attention. And this term looks interesting that I should pay attention. And I go do more research. It's like a graph of the knowledge that I ended up using my brain to follow and find out and summarize and synthesize the results. But that's basically something the deep research by OpenAI is doing, that it goes on its own, not just do quick research and spit out the knowledge back, but it thinks on its own. Is this really answering the question?
It's interesting. So an agent of the future could take some time to kind of do its research. It's not going to be instantaneous. Hey, as we're doing some complex tasks, it may do some of these iterative loops. It may fire up an orchestration of agents, and then it'll come back when it's done.
Yep.
And but it's still orders of magnitude faster than a human. You can pay a human for a week to do that. Right? It might take 20 minutes or 30 minutes.
The other example I wanted to highlight is a computer use, or that's by Anthropic. And the other competing solution from OpenAI is the operator. Essentially, they work with your computer or browser where it would act on your behalf. I've actually installed a program on my computer that would take over my mouse and keyboard. And then I ask, hey, look at my screen, look at my spreadsheet, look at the column A of all the technologies that I'm interested in. And then look at the column B, which contains the description I want you to fill. Go look at column A, fill the description of each tech in column B. And I hit enter, and then hands off. It starts to look at my screenshot, goes to the cell. Okay, it looks like I need to left click. Then, okay, looks like I need to do research and start to fill the information. And it takes pretty long time and between each task, because it needs to take a screenshot and confirm that they're on the right path. But they keep going and going and going. And I was really amazed by how the agentic capability goes beyond just like me interacting with the chat and then getting the text results as the output. It literally could do work for me on the computer, like through my computer, as if I'm working. An IT team could probably not even tell the difference whether I'm doing the work or the computer's doing the work on my computer.
Wow. That's fascinating. So you mentioned, Elisha, some bigger players like Anthropic and OpenAI. Any other kind of big names come to mind of either you guys that are really moving the needle right now with agentic AI?
I would just put a shout out there for all the startups that are doing it. And, there's sort of two competing trains of thought. One's that AGI and artificial superintelligence, it's all going to happen in the big AI labs. But I'm definitely not anywhere near ready to, kind of wave my hands and say that a centralized artificial superintelligence is going to do everything for us. I think the future, the reality of the present as well as the future is very distributed. And I think that means that startup innovation is not going anywhere. In fact, I think it's going to be more important and powerful than ever, particularly as Elisha was describing, having an agent, delegating tasks to an agent, having it get things done. I think that those that are building new companies and new products are going to have incredible acceleration, incredible power tools to get the hard work of innovation done. And that's really exciting. I think, these companies are going to solve specific problems for humanity, and they're going to be very focused. The AIs they use, the agents that they develop, the application layer of AI in these agents are going to be very specific for those problems. And I think we're going to see a lot of abundance. I mean, it's just really, really exciting to think of what's going to happen from all that innovation. The vision that Sam Altman put out there famously was that OpenAI wants to enable a startup to have $1 billion of revenue and one employee. Right. So because there's just one person owning it and running it and providing the motivation, and then a whole lot of agents doing all the work. And I think that's not as far off as it might sound.
Amazing. What about industries that are kind of leveraging AI agents the most right now that we can kind of look to for an example? Elisha or Jason, any thoughts come to mind as far as you know businesses that are doing it now and that are kind of paving the way?
Well, again, I think about these transformer models as like highly efficient compressors of knowledge. And so, um, what it leads me to is that there are really a few criteria that defines what industries and what activities with industries are going to be affected the most. And I think it's like wherever it's critical that there's high quality knowledge available instantly. So where you can bring this compressed knowledge to be relevant to a job or a task that's got to be done. And this really means most knowledge work industries. Second criteria is where knowledge tasks are like time consuming, laborious, repetitive, or error prone. They need to go better, faster, more inexpensive. That applies to much of knowledge work as well. The third one is that the possible world of business conditions or environmental conditions is really hard to model with traditional automation code. So sort of back to the same idea we talked about a minute ago that you can't really write code for every edge case that's out there in the world. It would take an infinite amount of time. And so wherever those three conditions apply, I think you can really make AI relevant in agentic workflows in particular. We're really seeing software development is, our privilege as software developers is being accelerated first. We're the first kind of knowledge work to really take off. And it's absolutely incredible. I mean, we're seeing, agentic, paired software development be 3x to 10x at least as productive and as effective as coding alone. And so I think that we are just the bellwether in software development for all kinds of knowledge work, all kinds of creative technology work, but all of that is going to follow. Another really important one is healthcare. There's a huge staffing shortage in healthcare, and there's lots of knowledge work. Most of healthcare is knowledge work. And there's an incredible amount of work that has to be done kind of in the margins to enable the work of actually providing care. So I think that healthcare is going to be transformed pretty drastically. So there are things like cybersecurity. Agents are going to be great at compliance and security audits, things like that. Legal, that kind of leads to legal. Agentic legal work is super interesting. Again, not to replace the attorneys, but to superpower them. And give them, the ability to do much more effectively with higher quality. And then the last one that I'm personally very passionate about is education. Salman Khan Academy has introduced an AI tutor called Khanmigo. And although I'm the last person in the world that would ever want to replace, the notion of human teachers and human instruction, I think that the humans can be made more powerful by using tutors that can meet the students exactly where they are, that can clear those hurdles of knowledge that stand in the way of any student trying to learn long division and struggling with the algorithm. I've seen firsthand that these tutors can be highly effective at this agentic job of understanding right where the student's level of understanding is, what they need to know or unlock in order to proceed to the next level. And so I really think that we're going to see a lot of human growth, and possible through advances in education. And I hope that can be, complementary with the traditional models of both public and private education.
I wish I had personal TA in college when I took calculus, because I could not understand based on professor who has PhD and, of course they're smart. They know what they're talking about. I don't understand at the student level. And the solution was that I just fail at tests and there's no additional, help that I can get unless I guess you have a private tutor that you can hire. Yeah. Maybe great. But I wish agents would just tell me step by step how to understand.
I personally have been learning so much outside of my field. I find that I can go into different fields with the help of an agent, and that's super exciting. It's kind of makes me want to do nothing but learn, for forever.
Yeah. I do want to add how it could affect cross industry, because I think Jason already did such a great job highlighting different industry that can be impacted. There is a common thread where we are doing a lot of work on top of a what we call CRAD application, where you go in and fill the form. If you think about Salesforce, there's like a million forms that you could fill about your deal that's going on, or maybe you're using a spreadsheet or something like that. I think the future is less of me having to be onboarded into how do I use Salesforce to navigate through pages of inputs. I just have a goal that I just want to log my conversation with the lead, and I don't care how it's inputted or how it's stored. And I want someone else to be able to ask, hey, what's Elisha working on this week? And be able to get the answer, and kind of replacing the need for this clunky interfaces that we have to deal with, uh, and just access to an agent who can store the knowledge, access knowledge, analyze the knowledge, give us insight with the knowledge.
That's Elisha. I think you hit the nail on the head. That's what these agents are all about. The name of my company is GenUI or General UI because we were about how do we bring the bounty of computing to humans more effectively? How do we make it easier for humans to use computing? And this agentic layer, this is really the application layer of AI, of the current generation of compute. And you're absolutely right. It's going to reduce the friction in using tools that we need to use, because we're going to have a much more natural user interface of dealing with an agent. We like to say AI is the new UI. So instead of learning that complicated Salesforce user interface, we can talk to an agent that can do what we need to do. And that means we can focus more on our core activity, on building the relationships that drive a sales team, or understanding a go-to-market. It up levels the human work to be something that's a lot more fulfilling and a lot more valuable. And I think that's going to be a lot more fun for people.
A lot of my conversations with people in the future, especially those are really deep in technology, talk about, and this goes like some of the most sophisticated roboticists are like, hey, this will help humans be more human and leverage really
Yes.
our biggest skill sets versus, get lost in the complication of screens. And I've said for a while that I think we've gotten more narrow and narrow with our screens, and like we're all developing this like neck thing where we're like we look down at these mobile phones. But my hope for the future is that we can look up more, because we can typing might be a little clunky, and we can talk to these interfaces, and we can have more 3D and spatial computing where it's more natural, it's more human like. And I think that agentic AI is a step in that direction, towards those sort of interfaces that Elisha is describing for one specific use case.
Definitely. When you work with an agent, you can focus more on the what of that you want to get done, instead of spending so much time and attention and effort on the how, right? But there is this danger in skipping over the how. If you don't understand it, or if you don't go on the journey of the how it's getting the what done,
Right.
You can become irrelevant, or you can really miss the point. So it doesn't mean that we can fall asleep at the wheel. It means that we have to be aware of what's happening and what the agent is doing, but that we can get a lot more done a lot faster and be more self-actualized. To your point, we can be more human.
Yeah, move
Absolutely.
up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which changes work. And I've reminded people that we all fear the computer much like we fear robots or we fear AI, and the reality was that it changed work. We now have 4-to-1 like knowledge workers versus manual laborers, and we will experience change. And I think the hard part is for humans when they get caught in the crossroads of we don't change as fast, and reskilling is necessary. We don't have a lot of wagon wheel makers anymore, but it's something that's been going on for the last, with every phase of the industrial and digital, movements. And so we will experience change, and we will have to change with it. one analogy I heard yesterday from a change management consultant that came to Fresh to train us to make sure we were on the cutting edge. I didn't love the analogy, but I thought it made sense. She mentioned that we should be like slushies. I was like slushies? Like, what do you mean like slushies? Like, do I want to be like a slushie? Well, she was referring to technology essentially and how like, you don't want to be frozen and like ice and like be immovable and just get sidelined by something that 52% of the Fortune 500 no longer exists that started in the year 2000. It's like companies that don't adapt are dying, and if we're not changing, we're really not growing, right? So you don't want to be ice, you don't want to be frozen, you don't want to be set in your ways as new technology you encounter. But the other alternative is water, and water's fluid, and water's fluid. So it's like, oh, but you don't want to be like water either. You just don't want to like go with with whatever change in the wind and be like, oh, this is the new thing. It's the point was like, be like a slushy, and that like you're going to be able to move, but there's some liquid aspect to that, but there's also some firmness aspect to that. So I thought it was a good metaphor to think about like, hey, as we're processing change, like, yeah, we need to experiment. We need to explore. We also need to, there might be a timing to something as well, but we need to anticipate that if we want to progress from a business perspective, we also need to change. And that's just been a time proven principle over the last 50 years. It's just accelerated because technology has accelerated in the last 20.
Yeah, it's a good middle path. My friend Shane likes to say, you want to be open-minded, but not so open-minded that your brain falls out.
I love it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this stuff is fun, and hopefully people will realize that it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Getting more self-actualized, having a co-pilot that takes care of the menial aspects of your task,
Mm-hmm.
takes care of the red tape, lets you do what you care about, what you pride yourself on, what you're good at, what really makes impact. Hopefully people see it as fun and will embrace the change. But yeah, it will not be without growing pains for sure.
Let's talk a little bit more about the future. I had mentioned at the beginning that we kind of have this small bang with generative AI, and like the change we're already seeing and kind of anticipating for human level performance. But it seems like agentic AI and AGI, as we get there, is the big bang aspect of, a point in time that is significant. So as we think about that future, 10 to 20 years from now, and we're thinking about, hey, how do we design and be a part of good? How do we design things with intent? What are some of your guys' thoughts about what the future might look like as we jump forward another 10 years or so?
I think being more human is such a good analogy. I think it would be great if I could collaborate with my team members or have one-on-ones or have time to maybe chat with the clients that I have worked with versus getting really busy and heads down like into the computer or smartphone trying to execute tasks, doing the research, trying to do busy work of entering data and reporting and putting together a spreadsheet to look like, hey, I'm doing great work and like we're doing such a great job. That it would actually bring me back into the more human collaboration interaction, and I can just ask my agent assistant, hey, can you put together a spreadsheet and just figure out how to best represent how we're doing this quarter. I can review later, of course. I'll have human oversight, but I don't need to be heads down trying to find 10 different documents that tells me, and I need to put together one nice documentation to say, here's a state of a project. If that can be automated, I can address the needs of the team member that I work with as a human, not attending to the spreadsheet.
I like that example.
The thing I'm most excited about, Jeff, is the creativity. I think we're going to enter a really awesome era of creativity for human work, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to see an incredible amount of acceleration in innovation at all levels. Startups and big companies alike, and this is going to deliver profound, wonderful benefits for mankind. People worry about the alignment problem, and they think, well, is AI going to get so good it will just obliterate humanity? And I really see the alignment problem instead as an opportunity. I think this symbiosis that's going to happen between humans and AI is going to be really magnificent. Um, the fact that we're working with agentic AI in this way already, and we're seeing that pairing, that partnership of humans and AI be more effective than any other model right now. I think that's going to continue for quite some time. Maybe there will be a supervillain AI created by somebody that wants to destroy humanity, but at the same time, there will be probably a lot more beneficial AIs that might counter that. So I'm excited. I think we're going to see a lot of the problems that plague mankind be solved.
That's amazing. I know we're talking big right now, and I want to add some thoughts to that. One is, I think with technology, there's always a good and a bad. There's always people that are on both sides of good and bad. And so almost any technology we see, things that are less ideal. But that should not, I think, overshadow all the good. If you think about what the computer has done for our health as human beings, right? It's like there's been some transformational things, and we're talking diseases or we're talking disabilities, like the transformations when we're of some of the technology with AI that we're seeing already for disabilities is just blows my mind. One of the things you mentioned was creativity, and I just like overjoyed that you said that as we think about the future, amplifying our creativity. And I think there's been some debate of like, are we going to destroy our creativity or do we amplify it? And I think it depends on if we are a consumer or a creator. If we just consume media all day long, we've seen the problems with that. We've seen that like, hey, we're on our phones all day long. We're just consuming media. We're filling our own LLM essentially. And then when our brain processes that, much like an agent process over an LLM, right? It's like you're getting whatever you put inside. And so if we're just filling it, and we're filling it with these, we're comparing ourselves against these images, et cetera. It's like, no wonder we have, mental crises now. And I'd say it's some of the bad that's coming out of the idea that we're just consuming. But when we're creating, this is the best of humanity. We're all creators. We're born with these innate gifts of creating that we see in the youngest of children as they develop, and sometimes we lose some of that as we grow up and we go through more regimented systems like our modern day schooling. But this notion of like amplifying our creativity and getting back to what humans do best and moving up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think that is the opportunity that I think if we focus on as humans, we'll find that the good will outweigh, the bad.
Totally agree.
So those are some of my high level thoughts. I'd love to hear any other thoughts on the future before I transition to the next question. Anything else come to mind?
Back in the Industrial Revolution, there was I think it was Karl Marx predicted that with industrialization and the factories that are being built, humans will have so much free time on our hands that we'll be able to, work 2 hours in the morning and then go fishing and hunting and reading the rest of the day. That's not what happened, right? The more industrial automation we created, the more we wanted to get done. Right. And there's this thing called Jevons paradox, which is like the more productive technology is, the more the demand for that technology increases. And we are absolutely seeing this play out with AI acceleration. The more we accelerate, the more we see opportunities to accelerate. And there's no sign on the horizon that is going to end. We still have a lot of problems we can solve. We still have a lot of things we can accomplish as a species. And the fact that we're doing our work in collaboration with AI is not going to remove the work. It's going to create different work, to your point earlier, transform the work, and it's going to be much more meaningful. But because of Jevons paradox, we're going to continue consuming as much of this as possible. But again, I think it's going to be fun, and it's going to be super weird. The only thing I know about the future is that it's going to be dramatically different from the past. And we really don't know what to expect, but there's a lot of cause for optimism. And I think the pessimists will be will be proven wrong.
Mm. The World Economic Forum, mentioned that they expect more jobs created than jobs lost. Jobs will be lost, but more jobs will be created as a result of AI and also robotics, which I think is that example from the Industrial Revolution is just poignant, of the philosophy and that happens with change, except when you understand that humans are creators, they're builders, and we like to be productive, right? And so it just changes the nature, like you said. We have higher orders of creation than before. And we see this with some of the billionaires going like, "Hey, now I want to go. Okay, maybe I felt like I've conquered what I can on the Earth. Now I want to go to the moon, right? I want to go to Mars." Like, you see that, some of those aspirations change.
Yeah, these people building rocket companies have so much money they would never have a possibility of having to do anything they don't want to do
Exactly
in their life. And what do? They do the hardest thing imaginable, and that's part of the human condition.
It is. That's in all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of lamplighters or chimney sweeps anymore, right? But do we miss that job? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we saw this through the pandemic in a deep, deep way, because it only existed, or it existed significantly in construction, where we couldn't find enough workers for construction. So it was a government emergency. But now all these other industries that had dull, dirty, dangerous, more mundane work, they couldn't get the workers back because they didn't want to come back to that work after they had a break for a couple of years. Not as many did, because it didn't fill them. It wasn't meaningful to them. So if they had a choice, they were looking for something else after they got out of that routine. So I think that's very, I would say, descriptive of what could happen in the future. It's like we all want to do more meaningful things, and work in itself is meaningful. But if we have a preference, if we have a choice, if we can have our agency, then I think as human beings we'll choose something of a higher order. And that higher order is part of that is being able to be more creative, because that's part of our human nature, and it's even been proven that is a higher order of intelligence. Highly creative people are often actually of higher intelligence, but it doesn't always go in reverse. So
I had a professor in college who convinced me that, at least for me, the most rewarding activity is creativity, and I think that probably applies to a lot of people, and hopefully that we'll get to see that blossom for everyone.
Right.
Yeah. Didn't Henry Ford say something like, if you ask people what they want, they'll say faster horse. And I think that's how I would describe the LLM that exists, at least today. Maybe it will change 5-10 years. It'll be smarter than us, but like we invent car, right? Like we think about the new mode of transformation, that if you were training LLM with the knowledge where a car did not exist, it wouldn't come up with the need or want or desire to have alternative mode of motive, and to invent something, I think is still, hopefully advantageous for a human being. And maybe innovating is still maybe something that LLM can do really well, like mix and match with what we already know and exist. Like, oh, if you combine A plus B plus C, LLM can probably do it faster than human could do on the existing things. But to invent something, to create something new that did not exist, I think this is where we still have an edge and have joy. Like, how do we go to Mars? Maybe we need to invent something that was never done before, that LLM cannot just come up with by combining existing things.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. It made me think of just the multimodal aspect also of how these new agents can be helpful. When we mentioned multiple sequence of steps and orchestration. And I think one of the things that I'm seeing is the combination, and you guys both alluded to this, but we've been talking a lot about text, right? And then we've been seeing, images, that's amazing. But when you combine text, images, code, video, and then start to mix in robots, like all these other all the componentry that intelligence can sit on top of, you start to get into be able to do a lot more complex things to that can extend you as a creator.
The real world aspect of multimodal models is maybe the most interesting and the most challenging. But Andre Karpathy, who's a really great person to follow on Twitter and listen to what he has to say, both about diving deep into how these things work and predicting the future. Um, you know, uh, Suggested that we might not be able to make a multimodal model as capable as a human without really having to understand the real world, the physical space that we exist in. Things like occupancy networks, which predict which voxels of space will be occupied by an object in the future, which is how some self-driving cars work. Um, but that's such an important mode to creating sort of a holistic intelligence. And to your point, Elisha, I think we will probably be limited in the advancements and the novel reasoning that these models can do until they really have all of those modes, especially world model or real world understanding, incorporated. But I would contend that I do think that we're on a path that will lead to um, AI models making discoveries and advancements on their own and not just regurgitating what's been given to them. I think that there's plenty of evidence now showing that they are doing, real reasoning and that, it's not that different from how the human brain works.
Well, I know we're about out of time, but I want to ask, either any other thoughts you have on the future or anything you're most, as we think about AI agents, what are you kind of personally most excited for?
As someone who likes to create, I think I'm still like curious. I'm still interested in putting pieces together. At personal level, I want to keep exploring like what's possible with AI. How could it help with my personal life? How could it help with the business professional life, as we're being the service company providing service for clients? How can we be better client, bringing great solutions for our clients and making them feel like they are accelerating on the progress that they really want to make and not being blocked because of some technical difficulties that they have. So I think I'm still maybe open-ended in my mind, open-minded, I guess, without falling my brain off, to to be really curious, like, hey, what's out there? Like, I want to keep exploring. Maybe I don't have a definitive, like, this is what's going to happen, or like I need to go to Mars. Maybe not so definitive in my mind, but really every day I'm really intrigued to learn and experiment a lot.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Feel that.
I'd say I'm really excited about the decentralization of AI. We've really been in this mode of centralized labs releasing models and having us use them in the cloud, and that's been partially out of necessity with just the compute resources that are required. But just recently, in the last few weeks, there's been a number of breakthroughs that are kind of showing that we might not have to use as much compute as we thought, at least for inference. One of those is like the DeepSeek R1 coming out and reporting, if we believe them, that the amount of compute that was used is orders of magnitude below what we thought was necessary. And the other one is this notion of open source and especially on device, on edge AI. Empowering the developer community with the ability to create and customize models and run them on devices right where we need them, when we need them. I think that's a real revolution in the software industry. It's something that is tremendously exciting. And now I mentioned the Allen Institute's OMO project. That is a soup to nuts open pipeline for training AI. And we got to add the little cherry on top, which is a ready-to-go iOS application as an open source repository. Any developer can download that and build their own iOS app that is, based on a model or features an on-device agentic architecture. That's available today, and I think it's really exciting to see what's going to happen from all of the innovators and creators and hackers of the world who are going to take this and run with it.
Guys, thanks for your wisdom and your thoughts here. It's my pleasure to have this conversation. I don't, always do this, but this is an episode that I want to go back and listen to. I definitely learned from you both, and grateful for your perspective, also your excitement, also your dedication to this space, and doing so with, human intent. Thinking about like how do we create good and do what's good for humanity. And that's when you have that creative combination with with those good intentions. I think for clients, like Elisha said, for ourselves, for the businesses we work in, it's an exciting place to be.
Thanks for your mindful hosting, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast.
Awesome.
Likewise.
It's good to have you both. All right, that's a wrap. The Future of Podcasts is brought to you by Fresh Consulting. To find out more about how we pair design and technology together to shape the future, visit us at freshconsulting.com. Make sure to search for The Future of in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And on behalf of our team here at Fresh, thank you for listening.